Alex Reeves finished his shift at 1:47 hours, station time, after 16 hours of managing crises that ranged from trade disputes to malfunctioning environmental systems. He performed his standard security check of his quarters, door locks functioning, internal sensors showing no unauthorized access, everything secure and empty as expected. He fell asleep within minutes, exhausted from a double shift covering for a sick colleague. When Alex woke, his first awareness was warmth pressed against his side. His second awareness was that this warmth was distinctly humanoid, breathing steadily, and definitely not supposed to be there. He opened his eyes carefully, trying not to disturb whoever had somehow gotten into his quarters. What he saw made his still foggy brain struggle to process reality. An alien woman sleeping peacefully in his arms, her face turned toward his chest, her breathing deep and even. Velthrani, his training identified automatically. The elegant bone structure, the subtle bioluminescent patterns on visible skin, the formal sleeping robes that looked expensive, all marked her as high caste. She was curled against him with the kind of trust that suggested this was completely normal rather than a massive security breach in a station security officer's private quarters. Alex's brain cycled through several responses. Panic seemed appropriate. Confusion was understandable. Concern that he'd somehow sleepwalked into a diplomatic incident was probably most accurate. He was carefully extracting himself when he noticed the devices mounted on his walls, small crystalline sensors that definitely hadn't been there when he went asleep. They glowed softly, projecting what his limited knowledge of Velthrani technology identified as active recording status. The woman stirred as he moved. Her eyes opened, Velthrani eyes that shifted color with emotion, currently displaying what his cultural database tentatively identified as contentment transitioning to gradual awareness. She looked at him, at their position, still entangled from sleep, at the sensors recording them. Her expression shifted from peaceful through shock to something that looked like resigned acceptance. "Oh no," she said in perfect standard, her accent marking educated nobility. "This is significantly more complicated than I planned." Before Alex could ask what she'd planned, his door chimed with emergency override authorization. Station Commander Yates' voice came through with the kind of barely controlled anger that preceded very bad days. "Lieutenant Commander Reeves, open this door immediately. We have a Code 7 diplomatic situation." Alex had no idea what Code 7 meant, but it sounded catastrophic. He looked at the woman still in his bed, at the recording sensors broadcasting to who knew where, at his door being hammered by station command. "I'm guessing," he said to her, "that I should know who you are." "I'm Princess Kira Velsarin," she replied, pulling away to sit up with dignity despite the circumstances. "Fourth heir to the Velthrani ascendancy. And you are now, accidentally and problematically, my bonded consort witness under the sanctuary law. Those sensors have recorded our intimacy and transmitted it to both our governments." She paused. "This is going to create significant political complications." The door chimed again. Yates sounded angrier. Alex looked at the princess sitting in his bed, at the sensors that had apparently broadcast them sleeping together to multiple governments, and realized his quiet security job just became exponentially more complicated. "For the record," he said, "I have no idea how you got in here or why you decided my quarters were an appropriate place to sleep." "I'll explain," Kira promised, "but you should probably let your commander in before she overrides the door entirely." Alex authorized entry. Station Commander Yates burst in with security team, Velthrani diplomatic representatives, and fury that filled the small quarters. She took in the scene. Princess Kira sitting on Alex's bed, the recording sensors, Alex standing there in sleep clothes looking confused, and her expression suggested multiple careers were about to end badly. "Lieutenant Commander," she said with dangerous calm, "explain how a Velthrani princess ended up in your quarters." "I genuinely have no idea," Alex replied honestly. I went to sleep alone after my shift. I woke up and she was there. I don't know how she got in or why." A Velthrani official stepped forward, his formal robes indicating high diplomatic rank. "The sanctuary bond has been triggered. Princess Kira Velsarin was recorded in intimate repose with this human male. Under Velthrani law, such intimacy, regardless of how it occurred, creates consort-witness bond that must be formally acknowledged." "Intimate repose?" Alex asked. "We were sleeping fully clothed, nothing happened." Under Velthrani law, sleeping in another's embrace is the highest form of intimacy. The official explained with barely concealed distaste for having to explain this to a human. "It implies trust, vulnerability, and chosen partnership. The sanctuary bond recognizes such intimacy as declaration of mutual commitment that transcends political arrangements." Princess Kira stood, pulling her formal robes around her with practiced royal bearing. "I came here seeking refuge. I didn't intend for the sanctuary bond to be triggered quite this way. But the sensors were activated by my security detail before I could prevent it, and now the bond is witnessed and recorded. It cannot be easily dismissed under our law." "Your Highness," the Velthrani official said sharply, "you are required to return to secure diplomatic quarters immediately while this situation is investigated." "And you, Lieutenant Commander," Yates added with equal sharpness, "are confined to quarters pending emergency briefing about whatever diplomatic disaster you've stumbled into." Alex was escorted to briefing room while Princess Kira was taken to separate diplomatic quarters under guard. He sat across from Commander Yates and Ambassador Chen, the senior human diplomat on Station Kepler 9, while they explained the situation with grim efficiency. "The sanctuary bond is ancient Velthrani tradition," Chen began, pulling up historical files. "It's designed to protect royalty who seek refuge with chosen guardians. When a royal enters intimate repose with someone, which in their culture means sleeping in their physical presence, that person becomes consort witness. It grants them authority to protect the royal and legal standing in Velthrani society." "It's meant to be chosen deliberately," Yates continued. "Princess Kira claims she sought refuge in your quarters for unspecified security reasons and accidentally triggered the bond by falling asleep. Her rivals claim it's calculated political move to gain human ally in succession disputes that have been escalating for months." "What succession disputes?" Alex asked, trying to process information while still half asleep and completely confused. "Princess Kira is fourth heir," Chen explained. "But the three ahead of her have been systematically discredited, eliminated, or removed from succession over the past 2 years. She's effectively next in line if she survives long enough to claim it. The sanctuary bond with a human consort witness complicates assassination attempts. Harming you would violate sacred law and trigger automatic investigation by both our governments." He pulled up political analysis. "Some analysts think she's brilliant, using ancient law to create protection neither government can easily dismiss. Others think she's desperate and made tactical error that will backfire spectacularly. Either way, you're now legally bound to her under Velthrani law, and both our governments are debating how to respond." "Can I refuse the bond?" Alex asked. "You can publicly deny it," Yates said, "which would shame her politically and void your obligations under Velthrani law. It would also remove whatever protection she gained by triggering it, likely making her vulnerable to the factions trying to eliminate her from succession. Your refusal would be seen as abandoning someone who sought sanctuary, which Velthrani culture considers grave dishonor. So I can refuse and probably get her killed, or accept and become part of alien succession politics I don't understand," Alex summarized. "That's an excellent assessment of your impossible options," Chen said. "You have 48 hours to decide before both governments demand formal resolution. In the meantime, you're granted permission to meet with Princess Kira privately to discuss terms." The private meeting happened 6 hours later. after Alex had attempted to sleep, failed, and reviewed every piece of Velthrani cultural information the station database contained about the sanctuary bond. Princess Kira was in diplomatic quarters that looked more like comfortable imprisonment. Luxurious furnishings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the gas giant, and guards from both species monitoring every entrance. When Alex entered, Kira was standing at the window. She turned when she heard him, and her eyes shifted through colors his database couldn't fully interpret. "I owe you an explanation," she said before he could speak. "The sanctuary bond wasn't calculated political move, though I understand why everyone thinks it was. I was running out of options, and your quarters were the only place I could think of where I might be safe for even a few hours." She explained her situation with the kind of frank directness that suggested she was exhausted from performing diplomatic evasion. Fourth, heir to the Velthrani ascendancy. Watched constantly by noble factions who'd systematically eliminated everyone ahead of her in succession. 3 siblings dead or discredited. She was next unless she found protection that transcended traditional noble alliances. "The sanctuary bond is ancient law that supersedes noble politics," Kira explained. "If I could trigger it with someone outside Velthrani factions, someone who doesn't have agenda in our succession disputes, I'd gain protection my enemies couldn't easily eliminate. Your quarters were neutral territory on a station where most spaces are compromised by surveillance, and you have reputation for absolute integrity in your security work. Everyone here knows you can't be bribed or intimidated." "So you did plan this," Alex said. "I planned to seek temporary sanctuary in a secure location. I didn't plan to fall asleep. That was exhaustion and stress overriding intention." She met his eyes. "But I won't lie and say this wasn't calculated. I needed protection. You represented the safest option available. But I didn't intend to trap you. I intended to rest somewhere secure for a few hours before figuring out next steps. The bond happened faster than I anticipated." "Why didn't you just ask for political asylum?" Alex asked. "Station Kepler 9 has formal protocols, which my enemies control. Every official channel is compromised by factions who want me eliminated. The sanctuary bond was the only law ancient enough and sacred enough that they couldn't simply ignore it through political maneuvering." She paused. "But I won't force you to accept it. If you refuse, I'll face the consequences. You didn't ask for this, and you shouldn't be obligated to risk your career and safety for alien succession politics you have no stake in." Over the next 2 days, Alex investigated what actually happened. Station security footage, which he had full access to as security chief, showed Princess Kira entering his quarters using override codes she shouldn't have possessed. She came alone, carefully avoiding detection patterns, and entered while he slept. The recording sensors were activated remotely by her security detail approximately 30 minutes later, after she'd already fallen asleep curled against him. Alex found evidence supporting her claims about threats. Communication logs showing noble factions coordinating against her. 3 suspicious deaths in her family over 2 years. Intelligence suggesting assassination attempts were being actively planned for the near future. She wasn't exaggerating the danger. He also discovered something else. The station's previous security chief, the one Alex had replaced 18 months ago, had been secretly reporting to Velthrani nobles opposed to Kira's succession. His quarters were one of the few locations on the station that weren't compromised by surveillance from her enemies. "She chose you because you're literally the only person on the station she could trust," his colleague Martinez observed, reviewing the same evidence. "Your reputation for integrity, your lack of connection to Velthrani politics, your quarters being one of the few truly secure locations. It was calculated, but the calculation was about survival, not political manipulation." Alex spent another evening with Kira, discussing implications without diplomatic performance. She was remarkably frank when formality wasn't required. Intelligent, surprisingly funny in a dry way that didn't translate well across species, and genuinely conflicted about the position she'd put him in. "I don't want to force this bond," she said, "but I also don't want to die because noble factions decided I'm inconvenient obstacle to their preferred succession. The sanctuary bond was the only option that gave me protection without putting me under control of the people trying to kill me." "What happens if I accept?" Alex asked. "You become my consort witness under Velthrani law. You gain authority to protect me, legal standing in succession disputes, access to intelligence and resources that might help keep both of us alive. You also gain a target on your back from everyone who wants me dead. And if I refuse, then I lose the protection the bond provides. My life expectancy drops to approximately a week based on current threat assessments. You return to your security work, and eventually, you file reports about a Velthrani princess who died under mysterious circumstances on your watch. The assassination attempt came on the fourth day, targeting both of them simultaneously. Alex was investigating a reported security breach in Section 7 when someone tried to sabotage environmental systems in that area, making it look like an accident that would kill him through oxygen deprivation. At the exact same moment, Princess Kira's quarters were attacked by intruders who somehow bypassed both human and Velthrani security. They survived only because Alex's security protocols detected the environmental sabotage early, and Kira's training in defensive tactics was significantly better than her attackers anticipated. She disabled 2 assassins before her guards could respond. The investigation revealed coordination between Velthrani nobles and human officials who wanted the sanctuary bond dissolved before it could complicate their careful management of interstellar politics. But the conspiracy was bigger than simple succession disputes. The evidence Alex and Kira compiled with help from his security team revealed years of coordination between Velthrani nobles and human officials to maintain what they called managed tension between their species. Not quite war, not quite peace, but profitable controlled conflict that benefited certain factions on both sides. Princess Kira's succession threatened that arrangement because she'd been advocating for genuine cooperation rather than managed rivalry. The sanctuary bond threatened it even more. It created a relationship both governments had to acknowledge that symbolized exactly the kind of cross-species partnership the conspirators had been working to prevent. "They're not trying to kill me just because I'm heir," Kira explained as they reviewed communication logs in Alex's security office. "They're trying to kill me because I'm an heir who wants actual peace. The nobles backing my rivals prefer profitable tension over genuine cooperation. Your government has matching officials who feel the same way." Alex looked at years of coordinated sabotage, documented in the logs. "So accepting the sanctuary bond isn't just about protecting you from succession rivals. It's about taking sides against people invested in maintaining conflict between our species." "Yes, which is why I'll understand if you refuse. This isn't just personal risk. Its political stance against powerful forces who have profited from the status quo for decades." Alex made his decision not through political calculation, but something simpler. Someone had sought refuge in the one place they thought was safe, and rejecting them now felt like the kind of dishonor he couldn't live with. He formally accepted the sanctuary bond in a ceremony monitored by both governments. The ritual required him to swear protection, acknowledge intimacy, which in Velthrani culture meant the trust implied by sleeping in each other's presence, and commit to partnership. The story ended 18 months later. Princess Kira had ascended to crown princess, her succession secured, and her rivals either imprisoned for conspiracy or discredited. Alex served as her consort witness, and as liaison between human and Velthrani security forces implementing genuine cooperation protocols. They'd built something neither expected from that morning when Alex woke to find a princess sleeping in his arms, partnership based on trust, mutual respect, and willingness to defend each other against forces that preferred profitable conflict over honest peace. "I still can't believe you broke into my quarters and fell asleep in my bed," Alex said one evening while they reviewed diplomatic frameworks in her chambers. "I was exhausted, terrified, and your quarters were the only place I felt safe," Kira replied without looking up from her data tablet. "Also, you're very warm. Humans generate more body heat than Velthrani. It's quite pleasant for sleeping." That's the strangest justification for triggering interstellar incident I've ever heard. It worked, we're both alive. The conspiracy is exposed. Genuine peace is actually possible for the first time in decades. Sometimes the best political strategies begin with finding somewhere safe to sleep. Alex couldn't argue with results, even if the method had given him several weeks of diplomatic chaos and at least one genuine threat to his life. But he'd made the right choice, accepting the bond, defending Kira, helping expose the conspiracy that had kept their species locked in profitable tension for years. And sometimes, the most important partnerships began when someone sought sanctuary in the one place they thought was safe, and the person who found them decided that honor mattered more than convenience. "For the record," Alex added, "next time you need refuge, maybe just knock on the door and ask instead of breaking in while I'm asleep." "Where's the fun in that?" Kira replied with the kind of smile that suggested she was teasing, but also absolutely serious. "Your idea of fun involves creating diplomatic incidents. Your idea of fun involves filing security reports. We both have room for improvement." She was right, which was annoying but also part of why their partnership worked. They balanced each other. His methodical approach to security with her strategic brilliance, his human directness with her Velthrani diplomatic skill, his commitment to rules with her willingness to break them when survival required it. They continued working, building frameworks that would shape both their people's futures. The sanctuary bond that should have been simple protection became foundation for transformation. And the consort witness who'd accepted his role because refusing felt dishonorable discovered that sometimes the best decisions were the ones that felt impossible at the time. The recording sensors that had triggered everything, those crystalline devices that broadcast a princess sleeping in a security officer's arms, were eventually archived as historical artifacts, evidence of the moment when one person's desperate search for safety became catalyst for genuine peace. And Alex Reeves, who'd gone to sleep alone after a long shift, woke up to find his life irrevocably changed by a princess who'd trusted him enough to be vulnerable. They became symbols neither had wanted, the human officer and the Velthrani princess whose accidental bond proved cooperation was possible. Reporters from both species asked constantly about that first morning, wanting to know the intimate details of how the sanctuary bond was triggered. Alex's answer never changed. "I woke up to find someone had sought refuge in the one place they thought was safe. Everything else followed from the choice to honor that trust rather than reject it for convenience." It was diplomatic non-answer that satisfied nobody but revealed nothing. The truth was more complicated and more simple. Kira had been terrified and exhausted. He'd been the only option she had left. And sometimes the most important moments in history began with someone falling asleep where they shouldn't be. 2 years after the initial incident, they attended a ceremony commemorating the permanent peace treaty between humanity and the Velthrani ascendancy, frameworks they'd helped negotiate, cooperation they'd helped implement, genuine partnership replacing decades of managed tension. "We're being credited with ending a conflict neither of us started," Alex observed during the reception, watching diplomats from both species actually talking to each other instead of performing careful hostility. "We exposed the people who were maintaining it for profit," Kira corrected. "That's worth crediting. Also, we survived multiple assassination attempts and political conspiracies. That deserves some recognition." "Your Highness," a Velthrani noble approached with formal bow, "the council wishes to discuss the succession ceremony scheduled for next month. There are questions about protocol regarding the consort witness participation. Tell them my consort witness will participate in full capacity as our laws dictate, Kira replied with the kind of pleasant firmness that ended debates. If they have concerns about human participation in Velthrani royal ceremonies, they should have raised them before I ascended to crown princess with a bonded human partner. The noble retreated, properly chastened. Alex smiled. You enjoy making your council uncomfortable. I enjoy reminding them that our laws apply regardless of their personal preferences. The sanctuary bond is sacred tradition. They can't honor it selectively based on species of the consort witness. She paused. Besides, making stuffy nobles uncomfortable is one of few benefits of being royalty. I intend to fully exercise that privilege. Ambassador Chen approached, looking significantly more relaxed than he had 2 years ago during the initial crisis. Your Highness, Commander Reeves, I wanted to thank you both personally. The cooperation frameworks you developed are actually working. Trade is up 40%. Joint scientific ventures are producing results. We're seeing genuine partnership for the first time since the war ended. Thank us after the frameworks survive their first major crisis, Alex said. Real test isn't implementation, it's whether they hold when something goes wrong. Spoken like a security officer, Chen replied. But I'll take cautious optimism over the managed hostility we had before. After he left, Kira looked at Alex with eyes that had shifted to colors he'd learned to recognize as affection mixed with amusement. You're still expecting everything to collapse. I'm trained to identify potential failures before they happen. It's effective security practice. It's also an exhausting way to live. Sometimes you can trust that the systems we built will hold. The systems we built are being maintained by people on both sides who opposed them. Forgive me for maintaining healthy skepticism. I'm not asking you to abandon skepticism, just to occasionally acknowledge that we accomplished something significant. She moved closer, her formal diplomatic bearing softening into something more personal. We exposed a conspiracy. We survived assassination attempts. We built partnership between species that everyone said was impossible. And we did it starting from the most absurd circumstances imaginable. A princess breaking into a security officer's quarters and falling asleep in his bed, Alex agreed. Definitely absurd circumstances, but effective. If I'd gone through official channels, I'd be dead. If you'd refused the bond for convenience, the conspiracy would still be operating. Sometimes absurd circumstances produce the best results. She was right, which was becoming a pattern in their partnership. Alex had learned that Kira's political instincts were usually correct even when they seemed improbable, and she'd learned that his security-trained caution prevented problems before they escalated. I have something for you, Kira said, producing a small crystalline device from her formal robes. It's the original recording from that first night, the one that triggered the sanctuary bond and broadcast to both our governments. I had it retrieved from the diplomatic archives. Alex took it carefully. Why would I want this? Because it's proof that the most important partnerships sometimes begin with the strangest circumstances. Also, because you look quite peaceful when sleeping, and I thought you might want evidence that you're capable of rest despite your security-trained paranoia. I'm going to pretend that's sentimental rather than mildly creepy. It's both. I'm multifaceted. Her expression turned more serious. But genuinely, that recording is the moment everything changed, for both of us, for both our species. Someone sought sanctuary, someone else honored that trust, and everything that followed came from that choice. Alex looked at the crystalline device, at the woman who'd broken into his quarters and accidentally triggered ancient sacred law, at the partnership they'd built from circumstances that should have been disaster. Thank you, he said, for trusting me enough to be vulnerable, even if the method was unconventional. Thank you for choosing honor over convenience, Kira replied. even when convenience would have been significantly safer and less politically complicated. They returned to the reception, to the diplomats celebrating peace that actually felt genuine, to the framework they'd helped build that was slowly transforming decades of hostility into cooperation. The sanctuary bond that began with a terrified princess seeking refuge and a confused security officer waking to diplomatic incident had become something neither expected but both valued: partnership built on trust, mutual respect, and the willingness to defend each other against those who preferred profitable conflict over honest peace. And sometimes, late at night when formal duties were complete and they could finally rest, Kira would fall asleep curled against Alex the same way she had that first morning, trusting, vulnerable, and safe in a way that had nothing to do with political calculation and everything to do with genuine partnership. "You're still very warm," she'd observe sleepily. "Humans make excellent sleeping companions." "That's going in your official biography," Alex would reply. "Crown Princess Kira Velsirin. Reformed succession politics, exposed interstellar conspiracy, appreciates humans for their body heat. Ad has excellent taste in consort witnesses, and I'll approve it." They'd built something extraordinary from the most absurd beginning imaginable. And the recording that had triggered everything, the crystalline device documenting a princess sleeping